Our speaker today, Mohsen Mahdawi, has had quite a life so far, from a Palestinian refugee camp to the Unitarian congregation in Hartland, Vermont. His life was profiled in the Valley News back in late December. I hope many of you got a chance to read the articles. There were links in the weekly, and if you still have the weekly and didn't get a chance to read them, please do. But Mohsen is here in the sanctuary, and it's a pleasure to be able to do that and have someone in person speak. So without further ado, I'm going to move over there, and I'm going to bring Mohsen over here to speak with you.
Thank you, Lord. Okay. Can you hear me, guys? Somebody say yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. I am humbled and grateful too, not only because today is the second day of spring, or or because this is the first time for me since a year to be in an actual church, but also the UU has been a home for me, a place where I deeply felt connected, and I found my people too. So today I will be sharing with you some thoughts, and I hope that you find what is meaningful for you in these thoughts. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام وإليك يعود السلام فتباركت وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. You Creator, God, Allah, Wakantanka, Al-Khaliq, Jesus, Adonai, Buddha, you are the source of peace. And from you peace comes, and to you peace returns. First of all, I would like to comment on Bob's comment regarding the hearing aids. And probably I would comment on it by sharing a little story, because stories speak so much to us. 7 years ago, when I arrived in the United States, and in the airport, I went to have a quick meal. And the waitress asked me, what would you like to drink? And my answer was a cup of water with snow. The waitress was very confused. I didn't realize until a month later that she was confused because in the United States you say cubes of ice, not cubes of snow. And this probably tells you a little bit about my language. So I'm giving you heads up, maybe tune in, raise your volume, and as my friends in New England say, burden my language. Bob made me aware that he shared with you my article. The article was written about me in the Valley News. But for those of you who haven't read it, I'm gonna summarize my life very briefly, just to give you an idea. My name is Mohsen, like Moses, who saved the Jews after 40 years of lost in the desert, but with an N. Mohsen. I am Palestinian refugee, was born and raised in a refugee camp as a third generation. In that refugee camp in the West Bank of Palestine, Al-Farah refugee camp, 60 acres, 10,000 people, I saw a lot. Actually, I saw so much, and some people would say too much according to the accurate language of English. At the age of 7, I lived without my mother. At the age of 8, I held my little brother, perished, in my arms and buried him in those hands. At the age of 10, I saw my best friend getting shot in front of me by an Israeli soldier, and I buried him too. At the age of 11, my birthday, September 12, 2001, after September 11, 2001, I saw my uncle, Thayer, my dearest uncle, assassinated, 2 shots in his head and 1 shot in his shoulder. Buried him too. At the age of 12, I saw fear and horror all of my life. But at the age of 12, I saw explosions that shattered people into pieces. And as a little kid, 12 years old, I had to honor the bodies of those who were killed and peeled their skin off the wall and collected what was left of their bodies, fingers and organs and other skins, and put them in plastic bags. At the age of 15, I was shot in my leg. And this is a lifelong struggle among pain and healing, fear and love, suffering and joy, anger and revenge and forgiveness. And probably what brings me today here is that the universe, the destiny, helped me to see the other side and to relate more to what we call hope, the positive side, while we still don't curse the negative, the dark side. This is a brief background of my life, but today I'm not talking about my past, my long past. I'm talking about the past 7 years of my life here in the Upper Valley, a place that I call home, a sanctuary. Maybe I can start by sharing with you that my heart has led me to this area. First, by falling in love with an American woman, then constructing a ladder and going over a 30-foot wall, then going down by a rope in front of a sniper, and then I find myself in the whitest state in the United States, in the great state of Vermont. Well, being in the white state wasn't the only challenge. My English wasn't that good. And another thing, that I came only for one person, the woman who I loved, Megan. And I didn't know anybody else. But shortly after being here for about a month, I get the chance to meet some people in Megan's circle. And I clearly remember and still good friends with both Dave and Matt. Dave was a medical student here at Dartmouth College at Geisel School. And Matt was a partner of a medical student. And my ex, if you haven't read, she was a medical student too. She's a doctor now. Well, one day, while we had a social gathering, I saw Rebecca, one of the females who were studying too in the medical school. And I didn't know exactly Rebecca is a Jewish name, but I saw the star and I heard her speaking of Seder. Well, I just swallowed it in. And later during that day, when I went home, I told Megan, babe, there is an issue. And she said, what's the issue? I said, Rebecca is Jewish. I don't know. And she said, well, you're very surprised. There are lots of Jews in the United States and you will get the chance to meet them. But that was one of my first aware interactions with somebody who is Jewish. And shortly, she surprises me by saying, well, your best friends so far, Dave and Matt, are Jews too. Well, that didn't sit right with me. All what I knew about Jews are the people who wanted to take my land, people who killed my best friend and my uncle, people who are behind the suffering that my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and me, and now the other generation, the fourth generation, are facing. But that moment of connection, that moment of intimacy, and I know a lot of my Jewish friends are here today, good morning, made me question my beliefs, put me in a conflict with myself. While I wanted to be away and to think about my relationship to Dave and Matt, and if I should still relate to them and how should I navigate with it, I was invited for a dinner by my friend Beth in Windsor, who used to work out with me at the gym. And I said, okay, it could be a good escape from this, storm of thoughts that I am facing. And the moment I enter Beth's house, I was greeted by her brother, Bill, and her son, Chris. And soon they get me inside to their living room. And I felt so overwhelmingly welcomed when I went there. But the moment I stepped into the living room, I saw something that I didn't expect. I looked at the walls and I saw some frames, pictures of Bill, Chris, and the third brother, the son, and Cameron, who basically served in the army, in the American army, who went to serve in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, for me, as a Palestinian refugee who's holding the memory of a kid, that wasn't much different from an image or a picture of an Israeli soldier. Well, yesterday I'm not sure what to do with Dave and Matthew, and today I am already at Beth's house and I don't know what to do. And part of me wanted to leave, but I couldn't leave before dinner. Well, soon I sat around dinner, I observed the interactions, I interacted with everyone who's there. And after dinner, I came with this realization. When we don't know each other, we form judgments, stereotypes. We get scared of each other. We might think the other person is a terrorist, or the other person wants to steal my resources or want to control me. We see the idea, the old, long-standing idea of an enemy. But the moment when we connect with each other, come to each other's houses, share meals, look into each other's eyes, open our hearts, share our stories, we realize that we have so much in common, more than what divides us. And what I said after dinner, I said to Chris and Bill, I said, if the Iraqi people had met you and had this chance to have dinner with you and to know your loving mother and to know your loving family, probably they would have received you with roses and welcoming you to their country, not fighting you. And probably if you get the chance to have this opportunity with them, you might have questioned it twice if you want to go to invade Iraq or not. Well, this scenario is not much different between Palestinians and Israelis, between Palestinians and Jews. We don't know each other. We judge each other. We're scared of each other. We think we're going to kill each other. And that's our whole purpose. Our whole existence is about how to deal with this headache, our survival. But the same thing that connected me with Matt and Dave before knowing that they were Jews, they were true friends, they were true humans. And so is the woman who helped me on the border. And so is humanity. We are related. All of us are related. Some might hear this and say, this is too optimistic. I want to hear some stuff about discrimination and racism. That's what I expected to hear. Well, I'm here to show you also part of that darkness, because without darkness, we wouldn't know and appreciate light. And it doesn't mean when I say this is a home, as Jesus answered the woman when she asked him what is home, when he was waiting for the ship in Orphalis. And he said, home is where you feel safe and loved. And those who surround you, there are your people. That's the words of Jesus, according to Gibran Khalil Gibran. Well, I felt home here. For the first time in my life, I was able to feel safe. Not expecting a soldier to come and knock down my door and arrest me or shoot my friend, or waking up in the middle of the night on shooting, or being fearful from moving from my house to Den and Witz or to Hanover. No checkpoints. This is home. But also at home, there are painful things too. And it depends on how we want to see them. I can share with you some of the painful things that I could remember, and I don't hold on painful memories, and I'll tell you after this why and how I do it. At work, I was discriminated at different work atmospheres, places. Here in the Upper Valley, I wasn't paid for my overtime at some point. It was called different names that says, for example, barista terrorista. That was a nickname, a fun nickname, a terrorist barista. I was faced with rejection and a lot of resistance when I was in charge, when I managed the places. I was called names. I was called that I am a person who's not trustworthy. And when my boss asked my colleague who was working with me, what did you see on him? Why he's not trustworthy? Why you don't trust him? Why you're treating him this way? She said, it's a gut feeling. Well, hello, race. Hello, stereotype. I was also treated poorly at my clinic, my ex-clinic, which is down the road from here. When I was studying at Lehigh University, and I was coming and going once each 2-3 months, and I needed a refill for my medication. And I was questioned if I sold my medication. Well, how can I sell my medication if I didn't refill it since 3 months? And then I was told that I should find another place, another service closer to home. And we said, this is home. They said, no, we can't supply you with this anymore. And they refused to do my refill because I questioned their dignity. This is like a professional atmospheres where you expect to be treated respectfully and equally. I always had to explain myself to people when I ask difficult things. Even in relationships, the most intimate thing that could get to you, I faced discrimination. Most of my relationships, when I dated women, their parents would be concerned about me. Well, they have checklists. Is he an Arab? Yes. Okay, this is a problem. He would be controlling. Is he a Muslim? He was raised as a Muslim. Well, he could be a terrorist. But the girl would say, but he's educated and is asking for peace. That's what he's saying. He might build an army later. But he's handsome. Well, that's a real problem. So some would say, okay, you're facing all of it, and this is a little bit, this is a little flavor of what I've been facing and feeling. But I don't focus on this. I move beyond it. And one might ask, how? What's the reason? Well, there are a couple ideas. The first one is an idea of a victim. See, when you are treated poorly, unjustly, unfairly, and when somebody discriminates against you or being racist to you, usually our instinct feeling is, I am a victim. And in the idea of being a victim, there is an oppressor and there is an oppressed. And the dialogue between the oppressor and the oppressed, we know how it's been dealt with. Somebody is wrong. And usually, we outlash on those people. We blame them. We point our fingers and we get angry at them. And this is related to what is happening in the United States regarding to racism and discrimination and separation between Democrats and Republicans, people in rural Vermont and people in other parts of, in the Upper Valley, white and black, Hispanics. We are facing a real issue. Well, the idea you move behind the thought, the ideology of a victim, you realize that we are related as human beings. First one, you knock down the victim. I'm not a victim. I am facing an act of discrimination, of harm, but I am not a victim. I'm not gonna tell the other person they are my oppressors. This is my own philosophy. This is the way how I navigate through it, because I understand that we are related. And then I have an empathetic understanding. Why did they do that? What's the reason behind their action? Why my boss discriminated against me, or my colleague, or the person at the medical clinic, or the parents of my ex? Well, first you have to understand that there are two types of racism. There is a blind racism and intentional racism. The blind racism is like your blind spots in the mirror. You don't know they're there. You think that you are not racist and you're treating somebody fairly. And when they tell you, I feel this way, or you're being discriminative against me, you lash out because this is a really bad thing to say. You get hurt, harmed. And this is, I think, a place where a lot of work has to happen. Probably what you're doing now by hosting me and allowing me to talk about it is understanding more about it, because I believe that nobody here has the intention of being racist. The other one is intentional, where people think that it is the right thing to be a racist because they have different reasons. Well, if you boil it down, both intentions, both ways of being a blind racist or intentional racist, it comes to a couple of things. The source of all of this is fear. Unable to deal with your fear makes you act in different ways. I saw that in trauma that I faced by myself. Sometimes I am blind of my actions until I deal with that trauma. I saw that with people, the Jewish people who are traumatized, the Holocaust and the discrimination and anti-Semitism and so on. They made them unable, a lot of people are unable to see the injustice that has been done by Israel against the Palestinians. Fear, unable to deal with fear and know it and recognize it. And on so many different levels. Our instinct as human beings is to register what is harmful for us. This is the way how we were able to survive the human psychology over thousands of years. But the issue is when fear controls us. Now I have a question. What would be opposite of fear? Fearless, some people would say. Well, the opposite of fear is love. Those are the two motivations, the roots behind our actions and feelings and motivations. And it's so easy when you have some fogginess and unclarity to say, is this based on fear or is it based on love? So fear. And what feeds fear is ignorance, when people don't know about each other, when they are uneducated about each other, and segregation, when they're unable to have meals with each other or to talk or to hear each other's feelings. And all of that fear of ignorance and segregation is fed to us through mass media news for years and years, supporting one side against the other, making people feel scared, insecure, and so on. Movies, books, and stories. And one might say, okay, this is a serious issue. How can we navigate through it? Well, I can tell you how did I navigate through my own fear. There are two types of fear. There is a fear that is self-based within, and fear that is coming from outside, from the community. The fear that I dealt with within my heart, within myself, I dealt with it through different means. First one, meditation, raising an awareness of my feelings and my fear, asking, is this based on fear or on love? Second one, therapy, psychological therapy that helps you to understand yourself and to face your fears and see your blind spots. And you could do that for racism and discrimination too. And the third one is being open about my feelings. I don't tell somebody, this is what you did to me. No, this is how I feel. Would you hear me? Would you feel my pain? Would you sit in my wound? I'm inviting you. And the moment you open your heart, you feel it clearly. And our heart and our nature is goodness. This is on the self level, on the community level. We need more communication. Get the chance to know your neighbor, to communicate with your neighbor, to hear their pain, their struggle, their hope, their love. We're all the same. Stories, share your story. Every human being has a story, has something meaningful, and we have so much in common in our stories. Ask yourself the question, is this based on fear or love? And if it's based on fear, bring your hearts closer and closer to each other. I'm going to close with a very short story, but it's one of the most meaningful stories to me, so I appreciate if you paid attention to it. A philosopher asked his students, and he said, why people yell at each other, scream at each other, why? Well, the first student said, because you are kind of pissed off at the source that makes you feel uncomfortable, and the least thing, you will scream. The least thing you could do, you will yell. You'll reject it in your heart, and then you can yell. The other one said, because you want to destroy this source. And the third student said, because their hearts, people's hearts, are far from each other. Now, pay attention to this third student. The philosopher said, tell me more about this. What do you mean by people's hearts are away from each other? Say it's simple. The deep moments of intimacy, when you are between you and the creator, if you believe in a creator, those deepest moments you don't even have to talk, because it is within your heart. It is the deepest moment you can get to. If you look at two people who are in love with each other, they will be almost whispering to each other. They don't need words because their hearts are very close. And when people's hearts are far from each other, you try to raise your voice. You try to say, this hurts. And if the other person did not hear you, you will throw a stone And if they didn't hear you, you shoot at them. But all of that will create more fear and more pain. The only way is to break through it, is to bring your hearts closer to each other, to speak softly, and to share how are you feeling. And with this, I'll close with one of the songs that speaks so much to my heart. And it speaks to my ideology and belief that we all are connected. And it says, the ocean refuses no river, no river. The ocean refuses no river, no river. The open heart refuses no part of me, no part of me. The open heart refuses no part of me, no part of me. Jew or Palestinian, the open heart refuses no part of me, no part of me, white or black. The open heart refuses no part of me, Democrat or Republican. The open heart refuses no part of me, all human beings. أهو متاكويا ويسن all of my relation. Thank you.